COVID outlaws.
Mr. Reagan.
All right, well, this is a kind of a feel-good story, although it is a bit bittersweet. A couple of nurses in New York were recently arrested for creating fake vaccination cards, forging, well, I guess they were real vaccination cards, but they forged them to give people vaccination cards that indicated that they'd been vaccinated when they actually hadn't, so that they could do things like go to restaurants and stuff like this. This story was reported all over the place. I'm going to read the New York Post version of it. This is a story written by Patrick Riley. It says, cash injection, New York nurses busted for forging vaccine cards in $1.5 million scheme. Let me just say, my brother's wife is a nurse. They make a decent amount of money. I don't know how much these women make, but I assume that it's pretty good. But $1.5 million, I mean, they are cashing in. And I have to say, I'm kind of impressed. I'll explain why in one moment. First, I have to sell you something. It's tax season, and I just paid tens of thousands of dollars for my crypto investment gains. Never again. I just learned that there is a way that my capital gains could go tax-free legally, and I can do it through My Digital Money. With My Digital Money, you can buy and sell cryptocurrencies through a crypto IRA. Yes, you can buy and sell cryptos as much as you want and not pay taxes. And we all know just how big those gains can be. Last year, Ethereum gained 450%, and with a My Digital Money crypto IRA account, you don't have to pay taxes on that. And here is the best part. My Digital Money is giving away $50 to new cash accounts, no questions asked. Just use the account MDM50. Go to mydigitalmoney.com and open a cash account now to get your free $50. That's mydigitalmoney.com. All right, so let's read this story. Again, this is written in the New York Post by Patrick Riley. Okay, so he writes, 2 Long Island healthcare workers were busted for allegedly forging COVID-19 vaccination cards in a cash injection scheme that raked in over $1.5 million, according to officials and reports. Julie DeVono, a 49-year-old nurse practitioner, and Marissa Uraro, a 44-year-old licensed practical nurse. Why do they have such weird names? Maybe they're easy to pronounce if you're Italian. I don't know. A 44-year-old licensed practical nurse are accused $220 for fake cards for adults and $85 for children. I'm assuming that what he's trying to say is are accused for selling $220 for fake cards for adults and $85 for children, the Suffolk County Police Department said Friday. As nurses, these 2 individuals should understand the importance of legitimate vaccination cards as we all work together to protect public health, Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney K. Harrison said. Now, we all know that you can catch and spread COVID despite being vaccinated. So I'm personally against vaccine mandates. I'm against the segregation that's being caused by vaccine mandates, stopping people from going to restaurants and stuff like that unless they're vaccinated. This kind of thing I think is reprehensible. I think that it harkens back to Jim Crow era segregation laws, and I don't even think that there's a good point to it. Obviously, a lot of people disagree with me on the left in particular. Joe Biden, they want you to be vaccinated, so they're going to do whatever they can to get you to be vaccinated. And so there's these sort of punishments, right? You can't go to restaurants, you can't go to work, you can't have a job and stuff like this. So naturally, they've created a scenario in which people are desperate because that's what they wanted, right? They wanted a scenario in which people are desperate to be vaccinated. But they've also created a scenario in which people are desperate to show they've been vaccinated despite the fact that they didn't want to be vaccinated. So these ladies have identified a demand in the market, and they recognize that they had a supply that could fill that demand, right? And so they've been able to do this. Now, at only $220 for cards for adults and $85 for cards for children, in order to make $1.5 million, they must have sold an insane number of fake vaccination cards. And I don't know, this really reminds me of bootleggers back during Prohibition, right? You had these guys who would sell alcohol despite the fact that alcohol was illegal, right? You had these bootleggers, and these bootleggers became folk heroes. They weren't just criminals, they were folk heroes. They were the kind of criminals that everybody loved. And I feel like these women are kind of the same. Certainly they broke the law and they found a way to make an insane amount of money in a way that might not be perfectly ethical if you're the kind of person that believes it's ethical to follow the law, even if a law is stupid. But man, you have to admire the guts. You have to admire the intelligence, right? They spotted this demand in the market, they filled the demand, and they made a ton of money. I mean, that's capitalism, and there is risk involved. That's why criminals make so much money. You can make a lot of money as a criminal, but there is a lot of risk, and that's a risk that they knew existed, and they entered into this business anyway, and they got caught. I think that's why this story is bittersweet, is because they got caught. But another thing that I want to point out is that if these women sold obviously thousands of these cards, thousands and thousands of cards, then I'm sure they're not the only ones. I mean, this is just, let's see, they're from Long Island. It doesn't say in this article where they worked, but the point is there are two women working at one hospital in Long Island. How many nurses in how many hospitals in New York were doing this? How many doctors in New York were doing this, or are still doing it maybe? And how many, you got to go to places in which vaccine cards are mandatory. They're not mandatory everywhere, but you're still going to find people who want to do things in places in which vaccine cards are mandatory. Like, let's say people visit New York and they want to go to restaurants, but they don't want to get vaccinated. They may be doing it. So who knows how many doctors, who knows how many nurses all around the country have been doing this? And if that's true, then a lot of these people are getting registered as vaccinated who aren't. The numbers are obviously all way off because Joe Biden, Bill de Blasio, and other Democrats have created this demand for this kind of criminal activity. They've created a new kind of crime by criminalizing being unvaccinated, essentially, in some areas of the country. You would get fired from your job. You still would get fired from certain jobs if you're not vaccinated, because some jobs have followed Joe Biden's recommendation that companies fire their employees if they don't get vaccinated, which I think is absolutely cruel, horrible, and totally pointless. In every company, your employees have to, in some way or another, interact with other people. If you're a business to business, or if you're a business to the public, you're going to have employees interacting with other people that are outside the company. And so there's always the opportunity for getting infected, even if somehow you were able to completely isolate your employees from the outside world. They still have to interact in some way with other people when they're not working, not if it's not working hours. Inevitably, you're going to get COVID circulating through the company. Vaccination isn't 100% foolproof guarantee that you're not going to get people in the company sick. There's a claim that if you are vaccinated, it will reduce the severity of COVID if you catch it. And I believe that. I mean, a lot of people out there watching this show will say, Chris, you're naive. That's not true. Maybe you're right. Maybe it isn't true, but I believe that is true. And so I think that people who have comorbidities, people who are old, they're afraid that COVID will kill them or create these severe complications. I think these people should get vaccinated. That's something that I've always said. I do think that the vaccines work to some degree. A lot of people out there disagree. You're going to call me naive in the comment section. That's fine. That's what I believe. That's what I think, for real. Just being honest with you guys. However, what I think is kind of weird is that the mandates in certain places haven't ended, and in some cases they've even become more severe now that we're out of, like phase 1 of COVID. We're out of Delta variant. We're into Omicron, which, according to all the accounts that I've been able to find, is a less severe variant. It's very infectious, but it's much less severe than the other variants. And so you're having fewer deaths per case. The case fatality rate's a lot lower.
Confirmed infections have doubled in the past week as Omicron spreads across the country, but hospitalization and death rates have been lower than in previous waves.
The severity of illness is still looking mild with Omicron compared to previous waves.
Omicron, from data both in South Africa, the UK, and accumulating data here in the United States, indicates that it very well might not be as severe, and many people from studies that are going on right now who get Omicron have either no symptoms or minimally symptomatic.
We've also got a lot of doctors who are more willing to treat COVID early on using things other than the vaccines now. And now you've got these Pfizer treatment, and I think you have a treatment from one of the other companies. And so there's ways to treat COVID without the vaccines. And a lot of people believe that Omicron may be the final stage of the pandemic, right? Because it is such a mild variant. Certainly the flu kills a certain number of people every year, and that's tragic for the people involved and their families, but it's something that is seemingly unavoidable, and it's something that is part of the circle of life. There's this poignant film from the 90s called The Lion King, and it talks a lot about this. If you want to learn more about that, watch The Lion King. It's really a shame that these two got arrested. I don't know what their sentencing is going to be like, but because it's in New York, my guess is that it's going to be pretty harsh. I hope not. I hope that they can get out of this somewhat unscathed. Again, I'm impressed with their ingenuity. I'm impressed with their eye for business. Once they get out of prison, which I assume they're going to go to prison, I certainly hope that they open some kind of business, because these girls are smart and, they made a lot of money. I think they can make a lot of money again. I don't know if they're nice people. They might be awful people. I don't know. Maybe they're awesome people. Maybe they're awful. It's hard to tell from this story, but their business acumen is definitely impressive. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know if you would want these women to be your nurses. Maybe they're vaccinated themselves and they don't really care one way or another. They're just looking for a quick buck. And maybe they have a genuinely ethical concern about these vaccine mandates. I know I do. This idea that you can't go to a restaurant without a vaccine card, or more importantly, that you could be fired from your job for not being vaccinated. To me, that is a violation of civil rights. To me, that is a humanitarian crisis. I feel like America is slowly becoming more and more authoritarian. Heck, we're not slowly becoming more and more authoritarian. We kind of became authoritarian overnight. We became a lot more like China in almost overnight in a lot of these cities. And certainly when Biden took his seat in the White House, in the Oval Office, I feel like that was a big jump. That was a big jump from a free country to an authoritarian country. And I'll be talking about that more in other videos, but I wanted to talk about this real quick because I don't think it's a story that a lot of people have heard. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm curious. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just that they know so much that is not so. Good night.
Those who would trade our freedom for the soup kitchen of the welfare state have told us they have a utopian solution of peace without victory. They call their policy accommodation. They say we offer simple answers to complex problems. Well, perhaps there is a simple answer. That we want our national policy based on what we know in our hearts is morally right.